Hey guys, Jeff here, and before we get to today's episode, I wanted to let you know about our Season 4 sponsor, Adventure is Out There Travel. If you're listening to this podcast, there's a pretty good chance that you're in the middle of planning your next Disney vacation right now. So why not make it easier for yourself? By working with an Adventure is Out There travel agent, you'll be having an experienced vacation planner doing the heavy lifting for you. Adventure is Out There Travel specializes in making sure your entire group gets to experience the type of activities they want in order to make your trip even more magical. Whether heading to a Walt Disney World vacation in Orlando, flying west to Disneyland, or floating on the high seas in a Disney cruise, Adventure is Out There Travel can help you plan the vacation of a lifetime. Visit adventureisoutthere.travel.com for your free, no-obligation quote today. Now on with the show.
You unlock this podcast with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of magic. A dimension of dreams. A dimension of Disney. You're moving into a realm of both wonder and fantasy, of news and ideas you've just crossed over into. Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and as you know, Halloween is getting closer and closer. So, today on the show, I decided to go back in time to Halloween 1939, which every Disney fan knows brings us to the Tower of Terror. So today on the show, I have an interview with the writer, director, and executive producer of the movie Tower of Terror, DJ MacHale. Let's jump to that right now. Hello and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for inviting us to your office here at Manhattan Beach Studios.
Yes, we are in the conference room.
In the conference room, yes. His office is much cooler, but also smaller. So we opted for here. But thanks for having us. If you don't know DJ MacHale, folks, first of all, I gotta say, you shaped my childhood in a way that you probably don't even understand. Let's start Ghost Rider.
That's a good thing. Okay.
Yeah, no, you wrote for Ghost Rider. Huge show.
Yep.
You wrote for Encyclopedia Brown.
Did you watch that show? You're the one?
No. You don't even understand. I still have episodes burned onto DVD. I had VHS copies, burned it to DVD. I'm missing one episode.
Which one? Do you remember which one it was?
Was it like a library thing or
there was, because there's only one I didn't write. It would be funny if that was the one you didn't have.
Was it something to do with, okay, this is going to sound so random, Glasses, Library, or Valentine? Any of those sound familiar? I feel like those were in the title somewhere. I will email you and let you know. Okay. But there's one episode I haven't seen, although I've seen them all. Really, really love that show.
Thank you. That was a really good, we could talk about that, but that was a really good show that never went past 6 episodes.
And the first one was kind of a movie, wasn't it?
The pilot was an hour.
Yeah.
And that kind of set the tone. And then we went to do half-hour episodes. And well, I won't say why we didn't do more.
We'll do it off the air.
Okay.
But it's a show I love. And honestly, I've looked on eBay. You can find VHS copies. Just saying.
Yeah, VHS. Do you know the guy who played Encyclopedia Brown?
He's dead.
He's dead. I just saw that recently.
Here's what's so sad. So I loved him. And when I was doing a little bit of research on you, I didn't realize you had done Encyclopedia Brown. I was like, I love that show. So I decided to IMDb and find out what he was up to because I really did love him. And he died in a car crash at the age of 18.
I know.
And I was like devastated to find. So this was like at 2 a.m. I was like literally laying in bed
sleep the
on
rest
my
of the
phone,
night.
and I was like, "Oh, that's so sad." But
I'm laughing. It's terrible. I just recently found it myself.
Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah, it's very sad.
But regardless, great show. So Ghost Rider, Encyclopedia Brown, creator of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Co-creator of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yep.
Major show for Nickelodeon, all of which have nothing to do with Disney. And of course, we're here to talk about Disney. So why are we here? Tower of Terror,
dun, dun, dun.
The 1997 TV movie. I remember vividly seeing a commercial for this and feeling like it came out of left field. And I was just like, what? There's a movie about this attraction that I absolutely love and adore, so I just need to know, how did this project come about?
Well, it's actually interesting that you actually saw a commercial for it.
Yes,
because
The Wonderful World of Disney.
I don't want to start this on a downer, but we got almost no promotion.
Oh, really?
Because it was what it was for us for The Wonderful World of Disney.
Yeah.
Back in 1997, Disney decided they were going to reinvigorate the Wonderful World of Disney. I mean, I grew up with the Wonderful World of Disney.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, I read a biography about Walt Disney once, and
you read or wrote?
Read.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you wrote. I was like, well, how did I not find this in research?
I wrote. Okay. I read. One thing I didn't realize is that Disney and ABC go a ways back, and what I learned in this documentary is that back in 1950. Whatever it was, 55 or whatever, 54.
In the park opening?
Prior to the park opening, is that Disney was looking for funding. Walt was looking for funding for this park. And ABC was still a fledgling network at that time. And they approached him about doing a TV show. And he was like, I don't want to do a TV show. But then he thought, ooh, this is real. I'm editorializing here, but this is what I got out of the book I read. Walt saw this as an opportunity to get financing for Disneyland. So that's how he created. I think for the first season of the show, it was called Disneyland.
Yeah.
And it was all about the building of Disneyland. Then they realized that there's not really a whole lot to show. So then it grew and it grew and it grew over the years. And I grew up with Wonderful World of Disney, Wonderful World of Color, it was called at one point. It was all different incarnations, off and on again. And then in 1997, they decided to bring it back as a family movie night. And this is how it was presented to me. And so I was brought in. One of the reasons I was brought in was because of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Okay. It's like I was the guy who could make scary but not too scary, family-oriented, kid-oriented, scary. Okay. Spooky, not horror. So I was brought in to a fellow by the name of, I forget his name, Charles, brought me in to say, hey, you want to make this movie for us? We've got this theme park ride, Tower of Terror. And the way he described it was, we're doing this family movie night, and we're going to show a lot of classic Disney movies. But what we don't want to have happen is, Toy Story, Mary Poppins, original movie, crappy original movie. Lion King. So all of the TV movies that they made, they wanted to make them splashy. Okay. They wanted to make them bigger than just, it's a TV movie like you might see in the Disney Channel or something. Even Disney Channel's doing splashy stuff now, but they wanted them to be splashier movies. So the reason I say I'm surprised you saw the commercial is because the movie that premiered the week after us was Cinderella, which was their huge Whitney Houston, Brandy.
I also watched that.
Well, and along with everyone else. So all the promos leading up to it was all for Cinderella. So I'm surprised there even was a Tower. It was the best kept secret in the history of.
That's interesting. So that was literally the following week.
Literally
the following
Cinderella.
Week. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I did not realize that.
Let's get this part out of the way. This is kind of a fun TV type thing. So the movie's going to premiere in 1997. Halloween makes sense. The movie takes place at Halloween. It's a spooky movie. And it was going to be the Sunday before Halloween. And it wasn't until 2 weeks before the movie premiered that looking at a calendar, and I was like, I put 2 and 2 together, and I was like, if the World Series goes to 7 games.
Oh, no.
It's going to be right up against Tower of Terror. So I'm rooting for anybody in 6. I don't care who wins. My team, the Yankees, weren't in that year for a change. And so I don't even remember who is it. So it went from the lowest rated World Series in the history of television to a Game 7. That was an extra inning nail biter. Oh, no. It was even I watched it, frankly. But it was that was so when Tower of Terror first premiered, between getting next to no promo and being against the 7th game of the World Series, it was kind of like, was there a movie on? We don't
You're like, let's make sure that check doesn't bounce.
Exactly. That was pretty much it.
Oh, man. That's a crazy, crazy story. Yeah. Now, had you, at that point, in 97, the only Tower of Terror that existed was Florida's at Walt Disney World. Yeah. Had you ridden it at that point? Were you familiar with the story of it or anything?
No idea.
No.
So the fun thing was, and I'm a Disney geek like everybody else, and so in doing the research for this movie, they introduced me to the guys who designed the ride. Again, I live in Los Angeles, so I'd been to Disney World, but I'd been since they created the Tower of Terror. So the thing that struck me from meeting these guys was how proud they were of that ride. It was really cool. I mean, they were just, I don't know how many years prior to that they made it, but they had plans and they're showing me all the things. So I got to learn it's an Otis elevator and this and so that's my first introduction to the ride. I then went down to Florida to ride it, just to get the experience. And I was...
All expenses paid, I hope?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes. And I was met with a surprise when I went down there. One, the ride is great. If anyone who's ever read the ride, it's a fabulous
phenomenal
ride. It's better in Florida than it is in California. We can talk.
Well, we don't even have it.
Well, it doesn't even
anymore.
exist now. It's much better than it is. We can talk about that in a minute. The rides were actually different in Florida and LA. But one of the mandates for doing this movie was we want to try to emulate the ride experience as best as you can. Mm-hmm. And the movie is not about a ride. The movie is about this haunted Hollywood Tower Hotel. Mm-hmm. But still, there are specific things about the ride. There's 2 elevators, and it's about these people who go in the elevator, and magic lightning hits it, and it goes. So we had to try to emulate the ride experience. Now, in my mind, part of emulating that ride experience is emulating the ride.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been to this ride, it's a drop ride, and that's fun and all that kind of stuff. But just the attention to detail, it looks like a hotel that was abandoned in 1939. And it's amazing. And most of the queue for the line is through the lobby of this hotel. Mm-hmm. And so as you go into the ride and you look at this lobby, it's just, oh my God, this is amazing. I thought, well, we've got to duplicate this somehow. So I thought, well, we can't do it. This is too great. It's too cool. There's no way we're going to be able to duplicate this thing. I looked at locations around Los Angeles, the Biltmore and whatnot, and just thought, it's not the same thing. It's not. So we have to shoot it in Florida. We have to shoot this ride. But it's a ride. No, it's not a set. It's a ride.
Yeah.
So I assumed when I wrote this thing that we'd be shooting a lot of it in Florida at the ride. But then also it's at the Disney, what was called the Disney MGM Studios. I don't know what it's called now.
It's Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Disney's Hollywood Studios.
And going through another name change soon.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Remind me I said that because there's a reason why it's called Twilight Zone, Tower of Terror, by the way.
Okay.
Which goes back. Remind me I said that. So I assumed we'd shoot as much as possible in the ride. And then we'd shoot the rest of the movie on the sound stages down at Disney because they have working sound stages down there. I had a meeting with a producer. I forgot his name. A little while, about 6 months before we shot, and he said, "What are you working on?" And I said, "I'm doing this thing for Disney, and we're going to be shooting. We're going to be shooting down in Florida." And he goes, "Where are you going to be shooting?" I said, "Well, we'll shoot at the Disney MGM Studios." And he goes, "Yeah, no, you're not." And I'm like, "We're not? What do you mean?" If you remember, Tom Hanks made a miniseries called From the Earth to the Moon.
Yeah.
That was shot at the Disney MGM Studios.
Okay.
He had booked those sound stages for like a year. Oh. So those sound stages were filled with mock-ups of Apollo capsules and Gemini capsules and whatnot. So they were unavailable. So it's like, uh-oh, now what are we going to do? On top of that, speaking with the guys that won the ride, I don't know if the policy is the same now as it was then, but it probably is. They don't close rides for you to shoot movies.
They did shut down parts of Disneyland for Saving Mr. Banks.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
So it's rare, but I can't think of any other rides that were shut down.
Well, the way it was explained to me is that if someone saved up for the year and traveled to Disney World and were looking forward to that ride, to see a sign. And it's one thing if a sign says down for repairs because you'll die if you get on the ride. I mean, you're disappointed, but you can't do it. Yeah. But we chose to close it down because we're doing something else to promote us. That doesn't fly. Okay. So they said, okay, you can get in here from midnight or 1 o'clock. And that's not shooting. That's start bringing your equipment in from midnight to 1 o'clock. But you got to be out by 4 or 5 o'clock because you got to clean it up to get ready for the day to come in.
Wow.
So it's like, uh-oh, this is not going to work at all. So we decided we're not going to shoot in Florida. So we didn't shoot it in Florida.
You did shoot some, right? The exteriors?
We shot the exteriors.
Okay.
Talk about budget.
Well, I was going to say, because that building is gorgeous.
Yes,
and there's no way you could have recreated that for a TV movie.
Well, going back to the lobby,
it
meant we had to build the lobby out here.
Yeah.
We had to duplicate the lobby. And so, I mean, this is a TV movie. It wasn't a huge budget. It was only like a $4.5 million budget. Like $1 million of it went into building that lobby.
Wow.
So in my original script, I had so much of the action taking place in various parts of the hotel. In fact, if anything, I reduced the amount of scenes that would take place in the lobby because I knew we'd have limited access to it. So I created hotel rooms and corridors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Suddenly we built this huge set. And I had to justify using the set. So suddenly all those scenes that were going to be taking place in other parts of the hotel were all jammed back into the lobby to justify having built that lobby. Fortunately, the lobby is cool enough, interesting enough that I shot the hell out of that lobby. Little nooks and crannies and everything, because it was exactly like the ride. So it was enough. It was interesting enough that I could shoot in that what was essentially a room, but you use all different nooks and crannies, so it didn't look like you're shooting in the same room the whole time.
Was it bigger? I would assume
exact same size.
Really? Literally, that was a pretty small queue, I feel like. But
there's the queue outside too.
Yes, of course.
That's the last part of the queue.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Phil DeGore was the production designer on this thing, and I brought him down to Florida. He literally tape measured the whole thing. It was an exact duplicate.
Please tell me you stole something from set. You have to have something.
Yeah. No, the one thing, if you've been on the ride, you know that there is a pre-ride movie that they show.
Yes.
It's Hollywood, 1939.
And I've got to tell you, I'm actually bummed because it's different actors than what are in your movie.
I know.
I've always been like, I wish they reshot that with your, obviously the ride opened first, but...
the only, we had one, there are two props that are kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. If in the movie there is the registration desk where you register for the hotel, and behind the registration desk there's like all the cubby holes where the keys are kept and mail is supposedly going to go for. That's the actual set prop from the movie.
Okay,
that was shown before the ride. So that's the cameo from the actual ride. The other thing, which is really kind of cool, at least I think it's cool. We were only the interior of the hotel was that set that we built, but we had a lot of exteriors of the hotel too. We had the grounds, we had driving up to the hotel, we had all this kind of stuff, and a lot of the scenes were shot in front of the gates. The gates, to Hollywood Tower Hotel, and so I figure, okay, we can make these gates and we put them someplace so it'll look like it's really there. That was shot in Los Angeles. But everything is something. It costs money to do everything. Yeah. So the production designer had pictures of these wrought iron gates that close between these two kind of brick pillars, and that's the front of the ride. And he came into my office one day, this is Walt, to pre-production, and he said, "You're not going to believe this." And I'm like, "What?" And he said, "So we figure we got to fabricate these gates. We're going to have to make these gates." So we went to a wrought iron factory someplace in Los Angeles, and we told them what we were looking for, and they were like, "Really?" Apparently, by complete dumb luck, this was the exact same company that made the actual gates down in Florida. Huh. And at the time they made them, as a backup, they made 2 sets. Wow. So they didn't need the second sets. So Phil goes through like some pile of junky wrought iron. It's going through all this wrought iron, and there are the gates of Tower Terror sitting here in Los Angeles. Yeah, so we used the actual second string gates that didn't make it down to Florida.
And now it's the gate to your home.
And now it's the gate to my mansion. Right. I don't know what they used here in California.
We didn't, did we have, I don't think we had gates here. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Very, very different experience here in California. But so you were an executive producer on the project, right? You directed the project. You were also a writer on it. And so when we touched this a little bit, but when you were writing it, were you given hard rules like what can be changed, what can't be changed based on the ride? Or
no, not at all. They were pretty cool about it. Yeah, it was do your thing. It was just that general. I mean, there are certain restrictions because it's Wonderful World of Disney. Yeah, it's 7:00 on a Sunday night for people who aren't watching the World Series. So it's got to be scary, but not horrifying. Yeah, and as best as possible, emulate the ride experience.
I'd say really successful. Like, honestly, it never felt forced to me. And now making movies based on rides has kind of become commonplace with Pirates of the Caribbean, and there's a lot of others now. But like, this was way before any of that.
Oh yeah, it was the first.
And I just remember being like, this feels like canon for the ride to me. Like, it never felt like it was something that, the ride's successful, let's make a movie based on it. You know,
I tried to do that. At the same time, they were actually developing a Pirates ride, Pirates movie to be animated.
Oh, okay.
So I saw all these drawings of all these pirate characters that are animated that for whatever reason they figured the Johnny Depp character is going to be much better. It's a suspect choice, but I think going back, I could kind of bring this full circle a little bit. in trying to emulate the ride experience, and why the ride in Florida is so much better than the ride in California.
Let's hear. Is this what you were getting to earlier?
Yeah, kind of, not the Twilight Zone part,
Okay.
but in speaking with the guys who designed the ride, they were so proud of their ride, and justifiably so. They said to me, this ride was the most expensive ride, at the time, was the most expensive ride that Disney ever built. There will never be another one. Well, surprise. So they make California Adventure, and California Adventure is not really doing that well. So they're like, let's make a Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
However, it's a different ride.
Yes.
Have you been in the one in Florida?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you know the difference.
Many times.
You know the difference.
Yeah, the one in Florida, I mean, just starting with the exterior alone, when you look at the one in Florida, you can see money dripping off of it. Whereas California's older version, and now the same exact ones in Paris that we had here in California.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
It was, it looks like a less expensive attraction.
Well, again, there's that, but also the ride itself is different.
Oh, yeah.
The mechanics of the ride is different. If you haven't ridden the ride, and it just goes back to trying to emulate the ride experience. The story within the ride that's part of the ride itself that I did not make up was that in 1939, these 5 people got on an elevator, which is the main elevator of the hotel.
Yes.
They went on the elevator, magical lightning struck them, and they disappeared, never to be seen again. No one knows what happened. They closed the whole hotel down, shut it down, walked away until tonight. It's opening up for you, which is why the hotel is covered in cobwebs and dust and all that kind of stuff. The premise of the ride is that this main elevator that was destroyed by lightning is still destroyed by lightning. But the ride is the service elevator. So when you enter the ride, you're actually getting on the service elevator of the ride that still works. So then what happens is the ride experience is you get in the service elevator, you go up, doors open up, and you look down this corridor, and there's spooky stuff going on, and there's ghosts, and it's going to go, and the anticipation is building and whatnot. Goes up again, the doors open up again, and then the ride moves forward through this weird Twilight Zone-y type area. Yeah. So in essence, what you're doing is you're going from the shaft of the service elevator to the main elevator. You get there, the doors open up, and it's a broken elevator. So boom, that's when you fall. In California, you're getting on the service, it's just straight up and down.
Yeah. It pushes you back instead of forward. And so in Florida, I always liked the surprise of Florida because you get in like a normal elevator, you go up like you would expect to. I can remember, like, for years I went to Disney MGM Studios and did not ride it because I was just too scared. And then finally one year I did it, and the moment that really scared the crap out of me was when you start moving forward, because it's a sensation you don't expect from an elevator. Yeah. Whereas here in California, you load it, and the first thing that happens to you is you push backward. So it goes
into the
it basically pushes you into the elevator ride shaft. Yeah. But like, to me, it always lost something because you're like, this doesn't make any sense.
It felt like a ride.
Yeah, it felt like a ride, exactly.
Yeah,
it was very different, and that fifth dimension scene in Florida is incredible.
Well, just the anticipatory. I mean, when it comes right down to it, it's a cheesy drop. Yeah. It's a drop, but the anticipation is so huge that it's more than just a drop. One funny story that happened is I actually met my wife making that movie.
Really?
And my daughter is now 14 years old, but when she was 5 or 6, 7 or something like that, they opened the ride in California. So I said, you got to go on this ride, because if not for this ride, you wouldn't exist. And she was scared. I mean, that I'm taking this little kid on this ride. She was scared. But I said, don't worry, I'll talk you through it. And I said, don't worry, what's going to happen? It's going to go up. The door's going to open. It's going to open. You're going to see the ghost. You're going to go up. Then you're going to go up, and we're going to move forward. And it goes up, and we dropped right there. I'm like, wow! Never forgave me for that. It's like, I didn't know. I thought we were going to go forward through the Twilight Zone.
That's funny. Now, speaking of the Twilight Zone, the ride, of course, is the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. Was there any conversation at all about Twilight Zone being part of the TV movie?
Yes, two things came out of that. And the conversation was, it can't.
Okay.
The story that I got, again, I'm only repeating stories that I heard, is that the whole reason that it was even... I mean, it was back when they were conceiving of the ride, but that ride was going to go into Disney MGM Studios.
Yeah.
Every attraction at that studio was somehow entertainment themed. And
I personally feel like the Hollywood theme was strong enough. I've always wondered this, and of course I love the Twilight Zone aspect of it, but I don't feel like it was 100% necessary. But
so the way it's explained to me is that the reason the whole Twilight Zone element came into it is they wanted to somehow justify that it was a TV show or a movie to say, oh, it's on the Disney MGM lot.
Yeah.
So, and you're right. That's me. I didn't think it needed. It's Hollywood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's glamour. It's glitz. It looks the part. It looks like it's part of a movie theater, a movie studio, or Hollywood. But they added the Twilight Zone element to say, this will say, okay, it's Twilight Zone. That's a TV show. People know, so it's a studio. The reason why it wasn't used as part of the movie is because, which was fine by me, but right.
Yeah.
It, apparently, again, this is what I was told. I don't know this for a fact. The Twilight Zone trademark rights, copyrights, all that kind of stuff is co-owned between the Rod Serling estate and CBS. This was The Wonderful World of Disney on ABC. So,
everything you do is co-owned, it seems like.
Everything I do is
you've run into problems.
And I'm not one of the co-owners.
Yeah.
So they're like, you cannot, they would not clear the rights for Twilight Zone, and which was fine by me, because I didn't want to have to add that layer of this is an episode of the Twilight Zone. I wanted to make it a movie, so I had no problem. I was thrilled with that decision.
Yeah.
Of course, so that's why it wasn't called Twilight Zone Tower of Terror.
Now, where did the idea come from for you? Was it kind of difficult to write a story into a story that already existed, or was it kind of, just worked itself out?
You never, when you're adapting something, there's always something that is the organizing principle. And like I said before, this is a TV movie. I think it was a good-looking TV movie, and we get some amazing bang for our buck, but it was still a TV movie with a lot of budget, which meant right off the bat, I cannot make a period piece.
Yes.
I cannot make a 2-hour movie set in 1939. It is not, we don't have the money for this. It is not going to happen.
Yeah.
So the next logical step was, but the event at this hotel happened in 1939. So the next logical step for me was like, okay, let's make a movie that takes place today that they're investigating what happened back in 1939.
Yeah.
So the majority of the movie can take place in the present, and we can do a couple of scenes in the back. So that made a whole lot of sense to me. So then I said, who does the investigation? Well, it's a reporter does the investigation. So it all kind of organically came out of that. So it was really pretty easy.
One of the things that I love about the movie that is the lore of Tower of Terror that we have is the Tip Top Club is something we never see. We never see it in the ride. We see posters for it, advertising it. We get to see it in your movie.
Well, that I don't even know if it's...
Was that L.A.? I would assume, or was that a?
We shot that in L.A. It was a location.
Okay,
it was a location. I don't think it says so on the ride. I mean, all the ride says, story-wise, all the ride says is these five kind of iconic people get on an elevator.
Yeah.
I don't think
there's posters advertised. I don't know if it specifically says that's where they're going, but the story is they're going to the top floor. Maybe I've just assumed that. I don't know, but I know that there are posters of the Tip Top Club around the lobby and such. So
yeah, I don't think it was even saying they're going to the top floor. So I'm sure at some point I thought, Tip Top Club. If they're going up, maybe they're going to this. So it's like, I can have a party up there. So again, it all organically came from what was there, and I jumped. Then I had to give characters to the character. I had to give characters to the iconic characters.
Yeah.
Why would they be going to the Tip Top Club? So all that stuff kind of just grows out of it. So it was really pretty fun and easy to do. I can tell you a fun story about shooting the Tip Top Club.
Let's hear it.
This actually is... I have directed a lot of things, and this is probably my favorite directorial story of the stuff I've directed. The movie opens up, if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, the movie opens up in 1939, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. There's some mysterious thing where a spell is being cast, and then you go to the Tip Top Club. And I thought, this is 1939. I'm gonna make a swing party out of this thing. I'm gonna make this the biggest, hugest thing that these characters want to get to. So it meant, and this all happens in the first 2 or 3 minutes of the movie, it meant staging this in huge swing party, dancers, orchestra, revelers at the top of this thing, intercut with each of our characters arriving in the lobby. That if you know the ride, you think it's kind of cool. It's like, I know her, I know where they're going. And one of my favorite shots, if you're a geek for this ride, and one of my favorite shots is in this opening sequence, one by one these guests arrive. They have that little moment where they arrive individually, but then there's a shot where it takes from behind them the camera. This is not my good story, by the way. But the camera kind of dips down, as they walk towards the elevator and the elevator opens up for the first time and they all walk in there and they take their positions the way you see them on the ride. It's just like, if you like this ride, you're going to love that shot.
Yeah.
But that's not my fun story. So we have to shoot this big swing dance party. And again, it's a TV movie. You don't have a lot of money, which means you don't have a lot of time. So I had a morning to shoot all that dancing, all the big stuff. I had one morning to shoot it. And it became clear about 2 hours in that I didn't have enough time. It's like, I'm in trouble. If I'm going to create this sequence, I need a lot of shots. I need a lot of energy. I need a lot of movement. Because I'm going to be cutting back between downstairs and upstairs and the witchy stuff. But I need to get the feel for this party. I'm going to need a lot of action. And I'm just looking at my clock like, oh my God, I'm running out of time. And this isn't the kind of movie like, oh, we'll pick it up tomorrow. Like, we couldn't even pick it up that afternoon. Yeah. I had the morning. And I'm panicking, I'm sweating. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I just have to keep going. And I had a shot list of, this dancer's going to move there, and then we're going to move that, and then they're going to go under their legs, and we're going to do all this kind of stuff. And I'm getting none of these shots. So I got a lot of shots of the band. The band is playing back to the music that's actually in the movie, and I got a lot of shots of the revelers and whatnot. But I'm not getting anything of the dancers. And I have like an hour left, and I'm panicking. I set up this shot, and the shot is in the movie. If you care to go back to verify what I'm saying, and hearing the story might be kind of fun to go back and look at it.
I was watching it yesterday.
Well, you probably don't know the shot, but you go back. It's very easy. It's a shot that it's taken from the side of the dance floor where you see everything. In the foreground, there are people, revelers at tables, drinking and toasting and whatnot. In the background, the dancers are doing their dancing thing, and then in the deeper background, there's the orchestra that's playing back. The shot was, you see a shot of a table of the people toasting and reveling and whatnot, and we're on a Steadicam. Mm-hmm. A cigarette girl walks through, and the cigarette girl, we follow the cigarette girl, we move over to our left, and we dolly, but it's a Steadicam, dolly over to our left to the next table. Cigarette girl walks off, and there are two girls on the side. One girl's off the dance floor, another girl comes on from the dance floor, and she grabs this girl and says, come on, let's dance. That was the whole shot. That's all I had in mind. We didn't have enough money for me to actually even sit behind the video monitors to get a feed from the Steadicam. So I'm literally behind the camera operator looking at a little monitor about this big, a little green and black monitor, and I'm watching this thing to make sure we got the shot. And we did maybe 3 takes, I think. And whatever, it didn't. So it starts and there's playback, and then the band starts going back and forth, and the dancers start dancing, the people start toasting, and I say action, and the girl walks through, and I go through, and I say cut. Everything stops, everything recycles to go back, and I go back to the first position. I don't know if it was the 3rd or 4th take, but we did the shot. Cigarette girl walks through. We move over the cigarette girl. She says, "Come on, let's dance." The girl goes onto the floor, and at that moment, the film gods shone down on me. This wasn't planned. I didn't expect this, but I hadn't thought of it a second before. But in that second, I got this divine film god inspiration. I was a half a second away from saying cut, which meant everything would have stopped and we had to recycle, and I said, okay, let's do the next shot. I put my hand on the belt of the camera operator and I said, let's go. And I pushed them onto the dance floor. And for the next 3 minutes, everyone was winging what was going on. I was kind of like, okay, get that dancer, shoot over there, go over that. It was total documentary style. The assistant director and the producers realized what was going on. They started filtering the dancers around us. The band, thank God, didn't stop playing because, thank God, the sound guy didn't anticipate and turn off the playback. Yeah. Everyone stayed in character. They saw what was going on. They stayed in character. And the dancers, God bless them, and they kept being fed around and spinning. And we shot. Thank God there was enough film in the magazine at that point. We shot until the magazine ran out. And it was all over. And I just said, cut. And I looked at everybody. Sweat. Applause erupted. The dancers are exhausted. They're down. Everyone just jumped up and screaming. It was so great. If you go back in that movie, I never counted how many shots there were, but out of that one take, we got like 8 or 9 shots. Yeah. And it made the entire sequence. So it's like, thank whoever film god was looking down on me at that time, they saved it. So if you ever watch them, we go back and you can count all those shots of the dancers. It was all the same take.
I love the shot where you have the bellman at the elevator door and he kind of like signifies to the door, and it opens, and it cuts inside the door, like it cuts to the dance floor.
Well, what it cuts to, it's a total effect shot, because what it cuts to is, I mean, obviously
it's like a bird's eye view.
It's a bird's eye view on a crane that goes down and then goes along the floor and goes up, and that took a long time to do. But if you look at that shot. And of course, if I ever look at that shot, I zero just on this one guy. It's the shot is looking overhead, and the dancers are dancing down there, and then the car comes down, and then it goes like this, and it goes along. And there's one dancer who goes, he looks up at the camera. I was like, "Oh, come on!" But it was the best shot. So
that's funny.
I had to feel it's like there was probably that one guy in the beginning of La La Land who probably looked at the camera during that shot, but like, "Oh, we got to use it. We can't do it anyway."
Now, you obviously had a ton of experience with this whole family-friendly. Not horror, but spooky genre. I am curious, are there any like rules that Disney puts upon for that? And if so, like, you can't have blood or whatever. And if so, was it any different than Are You Afraid of the Dark?
No. I mean, if going back to Encyclopedia Brown, I mean, I've made a lot of kid shows, and I've made a lot of kid shows for non-networks, and back with making Encyclopedia, HBO had never made a show like that before. So we, meaning the producers and I, we were kind of on our own, using our own litmus of what's possible and what's not possible. No one ever told us what we shouldn't do. So we kind of edited ourselves what we could or couldn't do. With Are You Afraid of the Dark, no one ever said you can't do this.
Interesting.
Because I think we were cautious about it. I mean, frankly, I'm not so sure some of that stuff could be done today.
I'm trying to think with Are You Afraid of the Dark, was there ever blood on that show?
No.
I was going to say, the shot in Tower of Terror I keep thinking of is when the guy has no head. And I'm like, it's a body with no head, no blood, though. So, like, that's something I noticed. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It's for kids. And I was, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Same thing.
The only shot in Tower of Terror that I heard any negative feedback on, and it's just because it was such a gruesome image, even though there was no blood. There's a scene where the woman reporter, played by Nia Peebles, goes into the room of this woman who turns out to be the woman who's behind this whole thing, and she's been obsessed with this little child Shirley Temple type actress, and this reporter finds her luggage, like her steamer trunk, and she opens up the steamer trunk, and inside the steamer trunk there's all this memorabilia from that, to show how obsessed she was with this child actress, and it's all hate stuff and it's nasty, and Nia picks up this like Shirley Temple doll who's supposed to be this Sally Shine, and the head flips off. Okay. It just goes back like that. And she's like, "Oh, that was the only shot I got." Because if you're really overthinking it, it's like, "Oh my God, this woman slashed the throat of this thing." That's how demented this woman was, and how obsessed she was. But I got more flack, and this happens to me quite a bit, and it's really annoying, from people who said it wasn't scary enough.
Okay.
And it really bothers me. And it's usually snarky reviewers who are like, "Well, I suppose it's scary for an 8-year-old." I'm like, because that's who it's made for, nitwit.
I will tell you, as a kid, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Certain episodes did certainly scare me.
Well, I never got that wasn't scary enough. But Tower of Terror, I did get that. Yeah. But I was, maybe I erred to the side of caution, because knowing it was Disney myself, I'm like, "Look, it's Disney, I can't do anything." There were a couple of truly eerie moments there, but there weren't any big jump moments.
The woman who played the nanny was creepy. Like she creeped me out. I remember that great sequence with Kirsten Dunst and the ghosts basically all surround her, and the elevator shaft opens and there's big flames shooting out. I was like, that's a kind of creepy sequence. Cut to commercial. I was like, oh, nice.
I tried. I mean, and I think it's one of the reasons why they asked me to do it. It's because I knew what those boundaries are, and that I wasn't going to go past them. So where I went to eerie rather than intense, rather than big payoffs. Like the shot where Sally Shine, the ghost. This is when we still think the ghosts are bad.
Yeah.
Buzzy Crocker, Steve Guttenberg, is going through the kitchen of the hotel, which has a good story about that.
That was a creepy sequence too.
Well, that was like creepy, and that's just before the headless guy comes out, and the headless guy pulls out a meat cleaver.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, this is kind of and it's this weird eerie thing where this green rain comes down, and you just see the silhouette of her dancing, and you hear her singing "It's Raining, It's Pouring," which I think is from the ride. I think the ride she sings "It's Raining, It's Pouring."
I don't recall that, but maybe.
I don't know if I'm twisted.
As you're talking about all this and you're saying the characters' names and everything, it's so funny because this is just so part of the story to me at this point that you actually named all these characters to ride.
Oh, yeah.
Sally Shine is like, although the character's not your creation, the name is.
The name is, yeah.
I'm wondering, now there's a hidden Mickey in the ride, and I don't know if it's in the movie. I don't think it is. Sally Shine is in the ride when she goes in the elevator has a Mickey Mouse doll.
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Does she? She doesn't have that in the movie.
No,
okay.
No. And her name wasn't Sally Shine.
No.
They don't give her a name in the movie.
In the ride.
In the ride. That scene that we shot a lot of the movie. I called it the hotel a la carte.
Okay.
Because we shot the thing all over the place.
Yeah.
That scene in particular, where it was the kitchen of the hotel, was shot at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. And the Ambassador Hotel was where Robert Kennedy was assassinated. And so that scene is right next to where he was assassinated.
Wow.
And it hasn't changed, I think, since pretty much that day. I mean, so it was weird. We had to kind of stand there and go, ooh, this is, okay, let's shoot. Yeah. This is really cool. Okay, let's shoot. So it was more creepy, ooh, what's behind that door, rather than something having actually something behind that door that will jump at you and scare you to death. So I erred to the side of caution on that movie.
Okay. One of the cool things about Wonderful World of Disney, at least something I always looked forward to, was the Michael Eisner intro. And I'm wondering, did you direct?
No, I wish I had.
Man.
That was pretty cool. I also have a letter from Michael Eisner saying thank you for being such a part of that thing.
That's awesome.
It's a pretty cool thing. It was.
I was really hoping you'd say you directed that because I wanted some good Michael Eisner stories.
I think I think just one company was hired to do all of them.
Okay.
And shoot. And frankly, in a vacuum, objectively, I'd like to say, oh, it'd been cool to direct that, but. I used to, in another life, I used to do a lot of corporate videos and whatnot. So I've directed a lot of these big shot guys, presidents of giant. It's a pain in the neck.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're like, I got 5 minutes. I'm in and out of here, and so it's like, let somebody else do that. That's fine.
Now, you had mentioned to remind you about a Twilight Zone story. Is that the story you told earlier?
Oh, that was it. It was
cool.
It was why they called the ride the Twilight Zone and did the whole thing, because it has nothing to do with Tower of Terror.
Now, have you heard any rumors? I'd heard rumors a while back. I don't know if it's true or not about a Tower of Terror feature. I've heard this has been banging around for a while.
It's been banging around forever.
Yeah.
But nothing ever could. You know, it's also been banging around forever. Encyclopedia Brown feature.
I actually, I looked into that recently, and by recently I mean a year or so ago. I looked into who had the rights because I was like, nobody's doing anything with this character, and you have.
I don't have the rights. It's owned by an individual that this goes back to what I was saying before. That HBO did not get along with.
Okay, so this is why this show was canceled. No, so it was made for HBO.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I was wondering that because I know a lot of those shows like shoot in Canada sometimes air somewhere else in Canada, but then end up on HBO. So that was shot for HBO.
This was solely HBO. They paid the full freight on that. In fact, it was funny to say how the those rumors of there's this Encyclopedia Brown thing's been going forever. I was on the set. Encyclopedia Brown was shot in the late 80s, maybe early 90s.
I think 89 that first one came out, something like that.
And I was in Montreal directing an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark in 1994 or whatever, and there was this actor in the episode. He goes, oh, I got to talk to you about, I met this guy. He's like, he's got the rights to this great series. You'd be perfect to write this thing. It's called Encyclopedia Brown Boy Detective. And I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And he goes, no, what are you talking about? He goes, I already did. I already wrote it. And he was talking about the guy that didn't get along with HBO. So
interesting.
I don't think Encyclopedia Brown will ever.
That's such a bummer. I'm telling you, that show was great. Go to eBay and get those VHS tapes.
It's really, I mean, it's hokey, but it's really fun. It was directed by a guy by the name of Savage Steve Holland, who he directed all of them, and he put his really quirky humor in there, and they're really fun. And the people at HBO said, "We love this show.
Yeah.
We were going forever to do this show, but we don't get along with the guy who owns the rights." So it's like, that's a showbiz reality.
Nerdy story about that show for me. The actor who played the car mechanic, I can't think of the character's name.
Was it Rick Dukeman? not Rick Dukeman.
No,
Rick.
He's a comedian.
Yeah, Rick.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
In any case, he's in Groundhog Day, I believe.
Yeah.
Ran into him at a Groundhog Day screening, and I was literally like, and it was actually my first time seeing Groundhog Day, and I was like, I know you. I'm like, but it's not from this movie. You want to know what I know you from? And he looks at me and he goes, Encyclopedia Brown. And I'm like, I never thought you would know that. He goes, I can tell just by your age. He goes,
Oh, right. Yeah,
he
that's
goes,
right, yeah.
People your age, it's Encyclopedia Brown. I'm like, that's amazing.
Buddy Claggett. I remember the character
that's
name.
That's right, Buddy Claggett.
Oh, my God.
Rick.
He's a good guy. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
I had a fun Encyclopedia Brown experience where... did you see the episode about the baseball cards?
Yes. With, what's the comedian's name?
Bob Nelson.
Bob Nelson. Hilarious. I loved his HBO stand-up special.
Writers don't, and I had nothing to do with the production of that show.
Yeah.
I solely wrote it. But going back, everything I wrote, they put on the screen. It was like, it wasn't one of these things where everyone had chefs in the kitchen and changing everything. I wrote it, they shot it. It was great. I saw Bob Nelson on an HBO special and thought he was hysterical.
Yeah.
I went to see him at a comedy club in Connecticut.
The one where he plays all the characters?
Yes, he plays all
and he runs in and out of the house. That's the one I fell in love with. Yeah.
He's hysterical. I don't know where he is today because the guy was hysterical. Seeing him at this comedy club, I never laughed so hard in my life at this comedy club. And he plays this one character named Epi Epperman.
Yes.
And I thought, I'm going to write that character into Encyclopedia Brown, never thinking we'd get him. And he did it.
Yeah.
And he came and he did it. He played Epi Epperman on Encyclopedia Brown.
Yeah, that was fun. Now, we've gone a little off Tower of Terror here, but I do want to ask you, I recently saw you at a convention, and you mentioned a fun little tie between Are You Afraid of the Dark and the Twilight Zone. That I found very interesting, and honestly was so angry at myself for never having realized this before.
You're not that big of a fan.
Yeah, right.
Or maybe at the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, that's what it would be. I definitely, as a kid, knew Are You Afraid of the Dark much better than Twilight Zone. But tell that little story.
The Are You Afraid of the Dark owes more to the Twilight Zone than it really does to horror movies and whatnot. I mean, we worked in every horror genre there was. Ghosts and monsters and vampires and all kind of stuff. But ultimately, the Are You Afraid of the Dark stories were these little morality plays and odd. And it wasn't just about scaring you. It was about going, ooh, what's going on here? This is weird. This is twisted. This is really weird. So, and I loved the Twilight Zone growing up. That was one of my favorite shows. And I don't think this happens on Tower of Terror. I mean, on the ride.
In the pre-show, no.
I don't think it does.
It might.
I don't know. Someone can look this up and find out. If you're a big Twilight Zone fan, you'll know or you'll remember that a typical Twilight Zone episode would begin with some weird scene that happens that's like, ooh, what's going on there? And then there's a whip pan to Rod Serling, and he's standing there looking at you. And what he will often say, not in every episode, and I don't think he says it on the ride, Tower of Terror, but he'll start that little speech by saying, submitted for your approval. A man with a podcast. He travels to talk to a man who makes a movie. Whatever happens to be. He sets up the story. I took that, and the premise Are You Afraid of the Dark? Kids sitting around a campfire telling ghost stories, telling scary stories. Different kids tell a story every week. They always set up that story by saying... if you could talk into a microphone, what if the microphone could talk back? Some kind of leading thing that leads into the story. But then every campfire always ends the same way, leading into the story, where they'll take this bag of what we call the midnight dust. They take this bag, and they reach into the bag, and they pull out this handful of midnight dust and say, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society. I call this story, and they throw the thing, and then the title will come up and whatnot. So that's every episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark pays homage to Twilight Zone and Rod Serling by saying submitted for your approval.
That's awesome.
Every once in a while somebody gets that, but
so cool.
But it's my little nod to Rod Serling, and thank you for being such a great storyteller.
I love it.
Yeah.
So what was the fire dust? Because I'll tell you, if they had marketed that as consumer products as a kid, I would have been all over it.
It was a non-dairy creamer.
Oh, that's the stuff that they used for the Phantasmic Dragon's flame. So
really?
So you've seen Phantasmic?
Yeah.
Okay. The original dragon, we have the new one here in Florida.
Not the dragon that never works.
No, that one, that one's a different story. But the one, I think it's still this way in Florida. It was a non-dairy creamer that basically would release into the air, and then they ignite a spark, and that's what creates the flame for the Phantasmic dragon. And that's what they used on Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Well, it's augmented. We always had like a little pyro.
Yeah.
in there. So there's a guy going, so the thing would go up. But non-dairy creamer is petroleum based.
That's hilarious.
And petroleum burns. So I had no idea.
So that's another Are You Afraid of the Dark Disney tie-in.
That's right.
I love it.
My gosh.
That's fantastic.
I'll tell you the one Are You Afraid of the Dark non-Disney tie.
Let's hear it. Oh, is this
casting?
Ryan Gosling?
No. Oh, there's the tie.
I want to get to that.
Oh, there is a tie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, this is one of the things that Nickelodeon, when Nickelodeon first started and well into its run of being Nickelodeon, is they prided themselves on being the anti-Disney.
Yes. Which I loved as a kid. Those networks were so different, and now you can't even tell them apart.
I call it the Disneylodian.
Disneylodian. I like it.
It's the same thing. But they were very prideful and saying, no, Disney's got that.
Yeah.
Disney's got that franchise. They've got that iconic stuff. They've got that style. We got to be something different. We're the real kids. We're the warts and all kids. So where it affected me, and I heard it all the time, where Nickelodeon really had their input on the show, more so than any other aspect of the show, was casting.
Okay.
And it wasn't even so much we like that kid, we don't like that kid. I heard it time and time again where I'd want to cast a kid and they'd say, he's too Disney. Mm. And what that meant was he was white, squeaky clean, freckle face, overacted. It's like, it's too Disney, and we can't be Disney.
Interesting.
And it would kill me because a lot of these kids were still good actors. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing an anthology show, you need a lot of actors.
Yeah.
And not all of them were good. So it's like, can you walk and talk at the same time? You're in.
Yeah.
So
that reminds me, I have a question for you off air.
Off air question. So here I get a kid who would be good.
Yeah.
And they'd nix him because he was too Disney. I'm like, oh, come on, kid. So that was an anti-Disney connection.
Well, with Are You Afraid of the Dark, there's a great episode. I don't remember the names of the episodes. I apologize.
You're not going to go where I think you're going to go.
It starred Ryan Gosling.
Oh, okay.
And Gilbert Gottfried, who Gilbert Gottfried, the obvious connection to Disney, is he's Iago in Aladdin.
Yeah.
But Ryan,
oh, that's right.
Yes. And Ryan Gosling was in this episode. What was the name of it? You'll know.
The Tale of Station 109.1.
Yes, by the way, when you were at the convention and you yelled out to the audience, "Who's the voice on the radio?" That was me. Who was like,
"Oh, you got
Gilbert Gottfried." But Ryan Gosling was in that episode, and something interesting happened. You wanted him involved in Are You Afraid of the Dark in a different way, but Disney kind of put the kibosh on that for you.
Yes. Ryan, when we first started the series Are You Afraid of the Dark, so it was 1992, I guess, we're not only casting all the episodes, we had to cast the Midnight Society, which became the iconic kids, the kids that everyone remembers. And Ryan Gosling lived in Montreal, and that's where we shot. So I wanted him to play the role of David in the Midnight Society. Mm. He got another gig. He got the gig to be in the Mickey Mouse Club in Florida. I don't know how that worked out for him.
Yeah, the Mickey Mouse Club.
He did fine. The Mickey Mouse Club with Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears.
JC Chazet from NSYNC. Kerry Russell.
She was in that too?
Kerry Russell, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like every person from that Mickey Mouse Club went on to be big stars.
Yeah, and they were shooting that as they were, like, Tower of Terror just opened, and the kids used to go on their breaks and ride Tower of Terror and then run back to the soundstage. And
oh my God!
At least that's the stories they tell.
Well, I believe it.
But yeah,
so he was. I don't know. They did 2 seasons maybe, and then that show was canceled. Unlike Are You Afraid of the Dark.
Was that only 2 seasons?
I think it was only 2 years. I mean, they may have shot 1 million episodes, but the 2 seasons. So Ryan came home, and then that's when he came back. I'm like, hey, there's that kid again. So we got him to be in an episode of the 109.
But they didn't say he was too Disney, interestingly enough.
Well, he wasn't. He was actually...
He's a real guy?
Yeah, he is a real guy.
Yeah.
No, I mean, now he's like a big, handsome movie star, but he was just like... He was a good actor, too.
Yeah, fun stuff. So, that wraps it up, basically, but I do want to ask, what are you currently working on? I know you write a lot of books, and they tend to be in, like, the dark realm, so kind of where did that come from? Was it Twilight Zone that inspired a lot of that for you?
I don't know. You can ask my therapist, if I had a therapist. Interestingly enough, I'm actually getting back into TV.
Oh, cool.
I got out of TV because, we kind of touched on this already, kids' TV changed. Mm-hmm. It kind of went to all comedy. Mm-hmm. And I don't write comedies. I write darker things. I write dramas. I mean, Are You Afraid of the Dark were dramas. Goosebumps while it was scary, it always had that kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of kitschy attitude. And it was very different than Are You Afraid of the Dark has legitimate drama going on. That kind of went away from kids' TV. And that's when I went to writing books, because I could write what I wanted to write. Now, things are always cyclical. It's like vampires come back every 5 years. And this is as much to do with being cyclical as it is to being streaming services doing interesting things again. I've got a show on Amazon that will be on Amazon right now.
Oh, cool.
It won't be out until 2019.
Wow.
It's an animated thing. It's a big adventure show. Anime adventure show. So that's what I'm working on now. Plus, I've got a new book series that's not so new anymore called The Library, which is, in fact, new ones are coming out in October.
Oh, nice.
So it's about a haunted library where these characters, the kids, it's filled with unfinished supernatural stories. So the idea is with each new book, kids go in, they can pick a book off the shelf, read it, and enter the book. But the story is not complete. So they have to be part of the story and complete the story. So it's as if the Midnight Society could take place and take part of the story. That's what this is. So the first one's called Surrender the Key. The second one's coming out in October called Black Moon Rising. So that's I'm writing those, and so it's and I'm doing another kind of cool thing, which is I'm doing an audiobook.
Oh, cool!
A direct to audio. It's a big fantasy adventure for Audible, which is also Amazon. They've never done this before. They're just starting to do direct to audio books.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really kind of neat. And this is big fantasy adventure that I just finished it yesterday, actually. And so that's going to be coming out sometime in the spring, I think. Apparently, it's much faster to do an audiobook than it is to a thing has to be printed in China and shipped and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be coming out. It's called the Equinox Curiosity Shop.
Interesting.
And that'll be out in sometime in the spring. So all sorts of fun stuff going on.
All over the place. DJMacHaleBooks.com, I believe, is the website.
DJMacHaleBooks.com. And everybody can check out my Facebook page or my Twitter account. Which, okay, you have to write this down because it's really hard to remember.
I'll put links in the YouTube description.
It's I don't know why I did it this way because it's so complicated. But in order to find me, it's DJ MacHale.
Oh, very good. Also, the Tower of Terror movie, as I mentioned, I love it. Check it out. You can get it on Amazon on DVD.
Oh, maybe one funny Tower of Terror.
Let's do it.
We talk about DVDs, which made me think of it. We've been to it a number of times here in California. It's not there anymore. It's Guardians of the Galaxy now.
Oh, in the store, yeah.
But my daughter, she's such a brat. We'd be online waiting on the ride because I don't get to go to the front of the line. I'm back with everybody else, and she'd be like, "So, Dad, when you made this movie, what did you do?" I'm like, "Shut up. No one cares. No one's listening." And then we go into the shop afterwards, and she'd stand by. They would sell the DVDs, and she's like, "So, Dad, is this your name on the back?" And no one cared. They're rushing over to get that Monsters, Inc. They didn't care.
Listen, we're in California. There's celebrities everywhere. Nobody cares about celebrities here. That's really funny. But yeah, no, the movie's available on DVD. It's also, I think, aired on Disney Channel around this time of year.
Well, a lot of people think it was made for Disney Channel, but it was not. It was made for ABC.
Yeah, so you can definitely see it. I don't think it's on Netflix. It should be. Maybe when Disney gets their new streaming service, they'll put it on there.
It might be on Netflix. I mean, you have to rent it.
Yeah, but you should check it out. Written, directed, executive produced by this guy, starring Kirsten Dunst and Steve Guttenberg.
It's a fun movie.
It's a great movie. And honestly, it makes me love the ride even more. So go check that out. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
It was my pleasure. It was a joy.
Hope you guys enjoyed that interview. Before we leave, of course, we have to have some trivia. So here we go. It's trivia time! Hey folks, and welcome to today's Trivia Time. Today I have Elisa here with me from attractionsmagazine.com. Hello, and welcome to the show, Elisa.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I love the subject matter that you chose today for today's Trivia Time. It was kind of random, but I'm all for it. We're going to talk the Hoop-de-Doo musical review, which, God, I saw so many years ago as a kid. I'm assuming you're a big fan since you selected this topic?
I'm a huge fan. I also love theater and all things entertainment, so I love, the gems of Disney as well that are sort of outside the parks, but still really fun to do. And of course, I grew up seeing it every time my family visited Disney World, so why not?
Very cool. Well, why don't you hit me with a question first?
Okay, here's your question. So, over the 43 years that Hoop-Dee-Doo Review has been open, there's only ever been one big menu change.
Oh.
Do you know what that menu change was?
The menu item, I don't really remember the food all that well, but I do remember very much, I was very young when I went to this. I do remember strawberry shortcake being a very big part of the show. So I'm going to assume that probably didn't go away since there was like a whole like musical number about it. Am I correct in that thought?
That's actually what the change was.
You're kidding me. They got rid of the strawberry shortcake?
Well, do you want me to just tell you the answer?
Well, I thought that was the answer. You said they got rid.
The answer is they now have strawberry shortcake. However, when the show first opened, it was apple pie. And then in 1979, they changed it to strawberry shortcake. And it's been strawberry shortcake since then.
Okay, how weird is that? That's like the one food I remember. So clearly, I guess they made a good choice in making it strawberry shortcake. Huh. I had no idea. Now, obviously, you did not experience the apple pie either. But man, yeah, they have this whole strawberry shortcake, and like they get the crowd shouting. I do remember that. Interesting. Huh, that's fun. My question for you is, what is the name of the performance troupe that performs the show?
Oh, yeah. Hold on, I know this. I've seen it so many times, and now it's throwing me off. Something players.
Yep. Where do they perform?
Oh. What does the letter start with? Maybe they'll help me.
P.
Pioneer Hall Players.
There you go. The Pioneer Hall Players is the official name of the troupe that performs the Hoop-Dee-Doo Review. Now, none of the characters have names, do they?
They all have names.
Do they? What are their names? I was actually trying to look into this. I was like, I wonder if those characters have names. What are their names?
There's Six Bits, there's Flora, there's Claire, Johnny, and
somebody else.
Mostly look alike.
Okay. I didn't even realize they all had names. I really do want to go back and see it. It's been a very long time for me. And
you
it's
have to.
Yeah, I definitely want to check that out one of these times. But thanks so much for joining on today's Trivia Time. You can catch all of their work over at attractionsmagazine.com, the hotspot to catch all of the latest theme park news. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show. Of course, to connect with us between episodes, make sure you go to DisneyCoastToCoast.com to connect with us there. For now, have a magical week, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for watching Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.